Recently, I've been looking for a tool to help me be more efficient and creative as a solo filmmaker. It has to be something that was easy to set up, easy to use, and actually brought some value to the table. Well, I actually think I found it. You're kind of looking at it right now. Well, you're not really looking at it, you're just sort of experiencing it. This entire shot is on a slider instead of just a locked off shot. Let me just show you what it looks like. So usually I just have like a tripod, obviously the tripod's there, but on top, you can see it's moving. This is the Konova 80 centimeter G1 slider, and it's probably my new favorite filmmaking tool. I don't think I've ever would have expected myself to say that, because I've always been the type of person that was like, oh, sliders, like, bleh, they take so long to set up, they're so heavy, and they can only do one thing at a time. I've used the slider for like almost every shot I've done in the past like week. So when you're filming by yourself, you can only really do so much. Most of the time, you just have to end up having a bunch of locked off shots. There's endless ways that you can use locked off shots to make your videos more interesting, but sometimes you just need a little bit more. You just need some movement that would usually require someone else's hands. I think that's why using a slider is super helpful. Sliders are used for super steady movement shots, and they take away the sort of human movement that you get from like a gimbal or like a Steadicam. If you got the same shot using a gimbal, you'd naturally have some movement because your body isn't moving perfectly still, and it can warrant some unnecessary vertical movement. A slider basically will give you a perfectly smooth horizontal shot from left to right, sometimes up and down, or even like forward and back. And I think filmmakers love these tools because they're under control, they're consistent, you can get the same shot from left and right. My friend Julian, he created this short film called Coda. So it's a dance video. He used a slider for like everything. He did an amazing job of sort of visualizing all of these shots. He was able to get a consistent movement the entire time. This is something that you can't really get with a gimbal. Sometimes like certain objects, like if there's like a couch or like a lamp, you'll kind of see it move up and down a little bit because naturally your body moves a tiny bit. You can only really like have so much smoothness when you're using a gimbal, and don't get me wrong, I love using a gimbal. It's great for certain things. I wouldn't use a slider for everything. I just wanted to like kind of challenge myself and see how I could use a slider. And using the Konova G1, it has allowed me to sort of film myself in a whole new way. Actually, a lot of the shots that I used in my previous video were using the Konova. So being able to get like a movement shot when I'm just doing something like on the computer or making coffee, just getting like a little bit of extra movement, it makes a huge difference. Here are the kind of things that I really enjoy about the Konova slider. I really enjoy the size. It's very portable and light. It comes with a bag, and moving it around on the sticks is easy because it's super light. My friend Julian, he was using like the Rhino slider, and that thing is like 50 pounds, like it's so heavy. It's made out of solid materials with carbon fiber and some different aluminums and rubber. And so it is actually powered by either plug-in USB-C or DC or NPF Sony batteries. And these things actually last pretty long. I don't think that there's a ton of power going into this thing. I can just run it off of one NPF 970 battery for quite a long time. It's super easy to understand. Within like 15 minutes, I figured it out. It has these little dials on the sides where you can sort of change like how it moves and turns. It's moving side to side, but it's also focusing on a fixed point. Just like kind of how my fingers are going like that. That's essentially what the movement is doing right now as it's focusing on me. Something like this is actually really useful if you shoot interviews. I've seen people use it as a B shot where like, you know, the main shot will be locked off and then the secondary shot will be off to the side, kind of like this. And so while the interviewee is sort of talking, it gives a little bit more like depth, and it gives a little bit more dynamics to the shot. Just like something that's different from having just a complete locked off shot and then going to another locked off shot. So the other thing that I really like is the app. The app is super easy to understand. There's not like a ton of extra controls that I just don't understand. You can set the in and out, the A and B movement. You can make it really small, or you can make it really big from, you know, all the way one end to the other. And then when you set those parameters, you can do other things like you can do stop motion. So if you do a lot of stop motion stuff, you can actually create some extra movement in your set. You can also do a time lapse, and you can set up the time lapse so that it's at the same settings as your camera. It depends on like how long you want the time lapse to be and like how much you want to cover. Set the exact same settings on the app, and then set the same settings on your camera, and it'll sort of like do everything at the same time. And it's pretty useful. And then there's obviously just the video mode, which is like left to right. You press play and it goes from point A to point B. It doesn't go super fast. I think this is like the fastest it'll go, but you can also change the settings of how fast and slow it'll go. So I can actually make it even slower than this. I can go from like, it'll take 1 minute to get from one side to the other, but right now I'm at 30 seconds because I just want to sort of like exaggerate how much movement is happening, you know what I mean? A couple things that I think could be improved on this thing. The stability. I feel like when you're really focused in, like you're super focused in on an object, it can be not perfectly stable. You can get like tiny jitters. Being the price that this thing is, sort of like giving it some grace, because it is actually very affordable and you're getting a really smooth experience. Another thing is the buttons on the actual slider. They're a little bit mushy and like they don't really feel very clicky at all. They're just sort of like you push in and you're not really sure where the actuation of the button is. It's got 4 rubber feet. If you wanted to set it up on a table, you can totally do that. And that is probably the easiest way to do it. You can also set it up on the ground, get this really nice like low panoramic shot of things. But what I like to do is I like to set it up on a tripod. It has holes in the middle of the slider so that you can actually screw it into a tripod. It has a screw on the top, so you can pretty much put any tripod head on it. You don't even have to put a tripod head on it, but I would recommend doing that because then you get a lot more control of where you're looking. Setting up the slider, it does take a little bit more time, but to be honest, it feels like it takes less time than setting up my gimbal. And you have to really like get the right settings on your camera. I went out and hung out with my buddy Hamuza, who I haven't actually seen in a while because he's just been traveling and being cool. He's like a Red Bull ambassador now, so he does a lot of events and like they fly him out and stuff. It's crazy. Yeah, we got to meet up. We both had some free time, and usually I like to just have like a low shot going up or I'm on my gimbal. And I was like, hey, why not let's try the slider. And so I shot some videos using the slider and it was actually really fun. You know, it didn't really create enough of an effect that I was hoping for. Like I thought there would be more movement. I realized that he actually just moves a lot from side to side and just moves a lot in general. So I kind of had to use keyframing at the end of the day. And when you're using keyframing, you just can't really tell that the thing's moving, but I think it might create a very subtle effect that it might actually be, you know, make things look a little bit different. Yeah, I don't know, it was worth a try and I'll probably still try it again. I think the nice thing about the slider is that you can get like a perfectly smooth shot and everything is still filmed in 24p. Whereas on a gimbal, if you want to get like a super smooth shot, like as smooth as a slider, you kind of have to shoot at like 60p. But then you're sort of limited to everything sort of being in slow motion. I would recommend getting the 80 centimeter because it gives you a lot more room to sort of play around. And yeah, if you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you being here. And yeah, if you want to leave a like, that's really helpful for me. I'm really thankful for that. And don't forget to subscribe because most of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed. So my goal is to get to 15K by the end of 2024. We're at 8,000. We're getting there, guys. And honestly, like, I know it's not about subscribers, but I'm really grateful that you're all here. I'll see you in the next one.